So I'm going to talk a little bit about a patient and sister that I worked with to give you a little bit of the caregiver perspective and the work that I do as an oncology social worker. So Jane is a 68-year-old woman who's living with her sister in a suburb close to Boston. She was diagnosed with cancer at the base of her tongue, requiring 7 weeks of chemo and radiation, and in her 20s, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She was really struggling with dementia and memory loss when we first met her, and at times she wasn't completely aware of her cancer. Her sister, on the other hand, was fully aware and had a lot of questions and needed a lot of support. So it became pretty clear that my role was going to be not just supporting Jane, but also supporting her sister, Sarah. So when Jane was in the hospital with complications related to her breathing, Sarah immediately pulled Dr. Irwin and I aside and said, I need a team meeting immediately, I need to know what's going on, I need to know when she's going to die. Really was very direct about needing a plan. And here we're sitting with Jane, who really did not seem concerned about what was ahead. She was very disappointed that she had to go to rehab, and that was going to be really difficult for her. And Sarah was not happy about that either. So we sort of had this moment where we could see that Jane did not have as much of the awareness of her illness, and Sarah had almost too much awareness. So we were able to give her some answers, and it was really my role to stay in touch with Sarah as much as possible, which sometimes was multiple calls a day. And you know, what happened was we really saw that Jane was kind of giving her sister one story, and she was giving our team another. So she would tell our team, I want to be in the rehab, that's where I feel the safest, and I want to complete my treatment. And then she would actually then turn and call her sister and say, you have to get me out of here. I hate it here. The food is terrible. And then her sister would call me and say, why can't you get her out of there? She's in a horrible place. Why aren't you doing your job? So we really started to think, like, how do we have these complicated discussions, seeing that they are not always on the same page? And what Sarah and I came to understand is that she really, Jane just really wanted to make both of us happy. She could see that it made our team happy that she stay in the rehab, and it made her sister happy that she be home. So that's just an example of how sometimes the caregiver and the patient are not on the same page. Sarah is the oldest of 6 siblings, and she has been the caregiver to all of her siblings throughout her entire life. So she has always been the one that everybody goes to. And I imagine that that is really hard, to be the one who's always responsible for everybody. 2 of their siblings had already died of cancer. 1 was struggling with substance abuse, and now she was faced with having her other sister, who was living with her and she was very close with, also going through an extremely difficult cancer treatment. So Jane's goals of care really varied, as I said, and she really just wanted to be at home. So as soon as we got her out of the rehab, she was happy being at home. But she then didn't want to come back and see the team. And so it was hard to get her to come back for her scans, to know whether she was taking her medications, because even though they lived in the same house, they really lived very separate lives. And Sarah was adamant that she was not going to drag her into the hospital. She said, I'm not going to make her come. She said she doesn't want to come, I'm not making her come. I said, okay, well, we may need to work on that because we don't know what's going on with her. We don't know what medications she's taking. So really building the relationship with Sarah was the key to having the conversations then with Jane. Talking with Sarah about what would she want for her sister's life. If things got worse, would she want her to stay at home? And that changed too. So I think to Dr. Jackson's point, it's about having these conversations again and again and again. And it can feel repetitive, but really the person you're sitting across from is sometimes hearing it the way you're saying it for the first time. So it's okay to repeat it and to say it again and again. One day, Sarah called me on the phone, and she was very scared. She was not angry at me, which was a little bit of a shift. And she said, she's not waking up, she's not eating, I don't know that she's taking her medications, I don't know what to do. And I talked to Dr. Irwin, and we said, you need to call 911 and bring her to the hospital right now. And she said, well, she won't come. And I said, well, then you've got to make her come, or the ambulance will make her come. And, you know, once we got her to come in and she was able to get hydrated and be thinking a little clearer, I said to her, you know, I said to Jane, you know, what matters to you? We're working really hard to get you to come in. What matters to you? She said, I want to be at home with my cats. I don't want to be in the hospital, and I don't want to be in a rehab. I said, all right, that's good for me to know. Because what we can do, what your part is to drink water and eat what you can. And when I call you, you need to answer the phone and tell me how you're doing. And we're going to have a nurse come in. If that's really what you want, then let's make that happen. And I think that really made her feel better, and it made her sister feel like someone was answering on the other end. I think a lot of times caregivers just need to know that someone's going to pick up the phone and listen. And so I know that we have many clinicians in the room today, and I hope that some of what you'll learn today will guide these discussions. I also know we have people living with cancer and their caregivers in the room today, and I hope that some of what you learn today will be that you can have these difficult conversations with the people around you who care for you, and that you can know that they may repeat themselves a couple of times, but that they're really trying to figure out what matters to you most.